Aloha, y'all. Welcome back to the Socially Awkward Chef. St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner, so that means it's time to make some corned beef and cabbage. Now, I typically cook this on the stove, which takes a few hours at minimum, but to save some time, I'm going to use an Instant Pot to cook the corned beef. The corned beef I'm using is just under 3 pounds, so if you're planning on using a larger cut, that's totally fine. I'll post the recommended cooking times in the description. If you don't have an Instant Pot, no worries. You can use the same recipe and cook it on the stove or even using a slow cooker. I'll also leave the different cooking times and details below as well. I am going to start with the aromatics first. So I've got what have I got? I've got one medium yellow onion that I just cut into 8 pieces. I've got 3 stalks of celery that are, again, just cut into thirds. I've got 2 large carrots, again, just cut into big old chunks because this is going to flavor up our cooking liquid. And to that, we also have, 3 cloves of garlic, and we're going to leave the skin on them as well. And then in here, this is actually just a little pouch of the spices that were in the corned beef. And to that, I added an extra bay leaf and some extra peppercorn. And if you don't have any whole peppercorn, you can just go ahead and add some freshly ground black pepper, or you can leave that out altogether. So let's get started with this. I'm just going to add this to the bottom of the Instant Pot. And then I'm going to add in all those aromatics and spices. Then on top of that, I'm going to add in my corned beef. I'm going to do the fat side up. And then I'm going to add in 4 cups of water. Now, it's totally fine if the water does not completely cover your corned beef, because the pressurization process is going to work its magic. Now, if you noticed, I did not add any salt to this, and that is because the beef has been brined, so it has enough sodium. And when we're done cooking, we can always taste our liquid, and if we do need to add any more salt to it, we can do it at that time. Let's close the lid. Just going to lock it into place. Make sure that the valve is in the closed position. And then I'm going to set it under the meat/stew setting. And since my corned beef it's actually 2 3/4 pounds, I'm just going to set it for 55 minutes. The general rule of thumb for pressure cooking these types of protein is about 20 minutes per pound. While the corned beef is cooking, let's get the rest of our ingredients prepped. Since I'm not making a large batch, I'm just going to use half of a large head of cabbage that I cut into wedges. I also left some of the core attached to it, just so it'll retain its shape for the most part while it's cooking. I also have a few carrots that are peeled and cut into large pieces, and about 5 to 6 potatoes. I've got a mix of red and Yukon gold taters that I've cut in half and have soaking in some water so they don't start to oxidize. By all means, you can use whatever potatoes you like. Before we take a break, if you're enjoying these videos, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell. It really helps tiny channels like mine, and I sincerely appreciate all of you. We're going to check back in when our Instant Pot tells us to, so see y'all in a little bit. My Instant Pot is ready to open, so let's check out our corned beef. I'm going to check and see if it's nice and tender, so I'm going to grab my tongs and give it a little gentle squeeze. I'm also going to take a paring knife and just kind of insert it towards the center, and that feels pretty good. Now, if you're met with too much resistance or it feels tight like a rubber ball, you'll probably need to cook it a little bit longer. So I would just go ahead and do it at the same thing, the meat and stew, and do it in 15-minute increments, just so you don't overcook it. But this feels pretty good, so I'm just going to take it out and set it aside. I'm also going to cover the corned beef loosely with some tin foil so it can rest and the juices have time to redistribute. Next up, I'm going to remove all of the aromatics and the spices, so all we're left with is the cooking liquid. And it looks like this also released a fair amount of the fat from the corned beef, so I'm going to skim off some of that as well. Since there's a fair amount of fat that I can see that's just been rendered from the cooking process, no biggie, I'm just going to remove it. I have a fat separator, so that's going to make it easier. If you don't have one of these handy, you can always just use a spoon and just carefully run it over just that top layer of our cooking liquid. That's looking a lot better, so I'm just going to take this little bit here, pour it back carefully, and now I've got some clear liquid going in, and that fat is going to go ahead and stay behind. That looks good. I'm just going to discard the rest. I'm going to give this cooking liquid a taste to see if we need to adjust anything. All right, I think I'm going to add in just a little bit of salt, not much. And I'm also going to set the Instant Pot to the saute setting, if it will let me. Try that again. Hey, there we go. I'm going to add in the potatoes. Let me just give this a stir so that salt dissolves. We're going to let the potatoes cook for 5 to 6 minutes. We're going to add in our carrots. And these are going to cook for 5 to 6 minutes. Last but not least, in goes the cabbage. And we're going to kind of push it down into the liquid as best as we can. And it looks like that's going to be about it. Now we're going to cover and cook this for 12 to 15 minutes or until the cabbage and potatoes are nice and tender. Our cabbage and potatoes are all nice and cooked, and our corned beef has been resting this whole time, so I went ahead and sliced them up. So let's get ready to plate. I'm going to start with a piece of this nice cabbage, and then I'm going to fish out some potatoes and carrots. Here is our St. Patrick's Day corned beef and cabbage. We are going to enjoy this with some spicy mustard and a pint. Thank you so much for watching. Until we eat again, y'all. Aloha!